Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Bonnie Low-Kramen. I am your host for Heads Together. We are here on Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. We have a very special guest today to talk about a very important subject, stopping violence against our Asian colleagues. And I'm here with my co-host and trusty, fabulous assistant, Jen Wilner. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Bonnie. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, so really thank you for helping so much with these shows. And I want to welcome our viewers from all over the world. And look who it is, Denise Bafty from Boston. Hi, Denise Bafty. It's great to see you as always. Welcome to all of our viewers from all over the world. If you have comments and questions for our guest today, Tiffany Nguyen, you are welcome to put them in the chat, and Jennifer will be moderating the questions and comments. And Tiffany has generously agreed to help us tackle this tough subject, important subject that's impacting the entire workplace. Well, Heidi Call, welcome to the show, all the way from Kalispell, Montana. I love it. This is one of my favorite things about Heads Together, Jen, is that we have viewers and listeners from all over the world.
Yeah.
Dusty Klesner, Minneapolis. Welcome, welcome.
Dusty.
We are here today to talk about the events that happened on March 16th, when 8 people were killed in Atlanta, and 6 of them were Asian women. But of course, the issue of violence against Asian people has been happening long before that. So when all this went down, I decided, well, Heads Together is a perfect place for us to tackle it, take it on, let's discuss it, as we always do. And I'm so grateful for those of you who joined in to tackle it with us. So welcome. Winnie's coming in from the UK. Hi, Winnie, from Parliament in London. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Selena. Welcome to all of you. All right, so if you have comments and questions for our guest today, Tiffany Nguyen, I hope you'll put them in the chat, and Jen will help us moderate. So without any further delay, I am going to introduce our guest for today, who is someone I've known for, we figured out, about 7 years. Tiffany Nguyen has come to BTUA. I met her at Direct Energy, where she used to work as an executive assistant. She's based in Houston, Texas. She's a seasoned EA. She has over 11 years of experience. Tiffany currently supports a partner managing director of a company called First Reserve, which is a leading global private equity investment firm exclusively focused on energy, which is very much about what Houston is. Tiffany is passionate about every assistance growth and development. And I know that firsthand because I've seen her in action at her companies, and she's so interested in her own professional development. But it doesn't stop there. Like so many ultimate assistants, she's interested in her colleagues, and that's super cool. Tiffany created a global assistance network in her previous EA role at Direct Energy, which, as I said, is where we met in Houston when they brought me in to train the administrative staff. Tiffany graduated from SMU, Southern Methodist University in Dallas, with a bachelor's of business administration and accounting. And in her time at SMU, she held several board positions on the Asian American Leadership and Educational Conference and the East Asian Student Association. Tiffany is also thriving as a breast cancer warrior and a mother to fun-loving 2.5-year-old Anderson. She met her husband during treatment at the MD Anderson Hospital, and they named their son Anderson after that hospital. I know. Tiffany is of Vietnamese descent. Her husband is Filipino. please let us welcome Tiffany Nguyen.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Hello to everyone around the world, from Boston. I see people from the UK, from Houston. Shout out from Houston.
So fun, right?
Yeah.
It's like having an international party and nobody has
It
to go.
is. And I don't have to wear my mask.
Right.
Yes.
We get to show our faces. It's all
Yes.
good. So it's become kind of a tradition here at Heads Together to ask some rapid fire questions.
Sure.
We started it a couple of months ago as a way to, have our audience get to know you better. If in fact there are walls between people, nothing breaks them down faster than finding out the places that we have in common. So
Absolutely.
You game? Want to jump in with me?
Yes, absolutely. Let's go for it.
Favorite musical artist or group?
Right now it'd be Taylor Swift.
Cool.
I love her.
Have you seen her in concert?
I haven't. No, I have not.
Vicki and I went to see her. She's incredible.
I bet she is.
Yeah. And you know what? She's super generous as an artist. She tends to bring on other really popular artists, to share the stage with, which is very much in your spirit of.
Yes. And she's very generous, I think, in her personal life. I think that's why I like her so much.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Starbucks.
Okay. Favorite TV show as a child?
I loved the cartoon Recess. It was just about kids at recess. They were just having fun.
Favorite vacation spot?
Hong Kong. I've only been there once, but it reminded me so much of New York, which I love, but it had a lot more nature things to do around it. So it was kind of an all-in-one city that you can do anything. I loved it.
Do you want to take Anderson there?
Absolutely. I was 2 months pregnant when I went, so he's actually been there. He just doesn't know.
What's your favorite dessert?
Tiramisu.
And if you could have only one book on a desert island, what would that be?
Oh gosh, there's so many good books out there. I would say My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You I'm Sorry by Frederick Bachman. It didn't go over well in my book club, but I love the book and I just love his writing, and it's just so light and funny and sarcastic, and it's something I'd want to have on an island.
Is it fiction?
It's fiction, yes.
It is fiction.
Yes.
And that says so much about you that you don't care what the book club says.
Yeah.
Tiffany is nothing if not her own person. She's very opinionated. What's your favorite app on your phone?
The Calm app. It's a meditation app.
Do you know what? That many people have said that.
Yes.
And we've been talking about it for a long time. What's your favorite movie?
I love all Pixar movies. I love Up. That's my favorite one.
Oh,
yes.
It's a great one.
It is. I love balloons.
What's your least favorite sound?
Someone in pain.
Yeah. Favorite designer, fashion designer?
Michael Kors. I worked there for a number of years, so I definitely appreciate his designs, his style, his brand, and his purpose.
Tiffany is absolutely known for her shoes and her bags and her sense of style. What's the last thing you binge watched?
We only have one TV in my house, and with a toddler, he loves the movies Cars. So I swear we've watched each Cars 1, 2, and 3 at least 20 times.
Oh, so you can probably say the dialogue.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Last question. Tell us one thing that's not on your LinkedIn profile that would be really interesting for our audience to know.
I'm going to give you a vulnerable one and then a fun one. The vulnerable one is fear of not being good enough. So this unworthiness feeling that I've had for a long time. And the fun one is I have 7 tattoos.
Okay. What's that?
Did you know that, Bonnie?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Are any of them visible?
Yeah, I have one here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. 7.
7, yes.
7 of them. Okay. Well, Tiffany, I'm really grateful that, you didn't hesitate when I contacted you and asked you about what was on my mind, that we you've sat in on Heads Together before, and you know that we don't shy away from the tough stuff that's facing us in the workplace today. And Vicki and I were talking actually, and about this issue, and she was like, "Well, Tiffany's the one we need to ask for that." So I wanted to talk to you about the discrimination and the violence that's happening against Asian people, and specifically the events that happened in Atlanta on March 16th, when 8 people were shot and 6 of them were Asian women. Now, we talked on the phone that discrimination's been happening against Asian people for a very long time. It didn't begin with March 16th for sure. I mentioned you are Vietnamese and your husband is Filipino. Can you please share your thoughts on what has happened and help us understand how it is for you, and just help us understand it more, please?
Sure. Well, first, thank you for this platform. I think it's very important that my voice gets heard in my story. I don't talk for every Asian American out there, but I do have my own story and my own experiences, and I really do appreciate you giving me this opportunity and this platform, and everyone joining in and being curious about it. I think that's the first step. But
Absolutely.
when I actually, well, you said I didn't hesitate when you asked me. I did kind of hesitate when you asked me to do it, but for different reasons, which I might go into later. But when I first heard about the attacks, it was definitely heartbreaking. I feel for these families that have lost their loved ones. These were mothers, wives, sisters, daughters. And as a mother myself, I couldn't imagine my son growing up without me. So it was, I felt a lot of empathy for the victims of the shootings. It's frustrating as well. I'm frustrated with myself. I'd have to admit that before the shooting, I did know that, these aggressions were happening against Asian Americans, but I always dismissed them. Even when you asked me to speak about this, I was like, well, nothing has happened to me, but that's not true. I just dismissed it. I think when you think about the Asian history, there are Asian countries now, today, that don't have freedom of speech. So we're very conditioned to not be outspoken. When things happen to us, we don't speak up about it. And I think this event, it's so tragic, but there's so much coming out of it. There's movement, there's discussion, so I think that's why it's a little bit confusing, because I'm sad on one end, but I'm also glad for this opportunity that we are now getting a voice, and it's lighting a fire under us. It's motivating us to rally. We aren't known for doing those things. We're known for being very meek. Our parents, growing up, our parents say, don't stir the pot, just work hard, keep your head down, things like that. And so that's what we're conditioned to act like. But yes, I think about the media. This happened a couple of weeks ago. It made the international news because it was a mass shooting, but it's kind of died down in the past couple of weeks, honestly. I think on social media, there are still continuing the conversation, but media-wise, it's kind of been swept under the rug. That's what I feel. With for an example, the Derek Chauvin case started this week. George Floyd has been a very hot topic for months. I'm very curious to see if the shooter of these Atlanta spas, when his case comes up, if it'll get media coverage.
Right. Well, I have to say that I agree with you that it seems like it has died down.
Right.
And I didn't want to permit that. For us to address it, but it seems really important to do that. And the hashtag has been created. what are some of the stereotypes that you and your family bump into that we on this call can be alert to, that we became alert to with the Black community during Black History Month and in the months after the George Floyd murder?
Right.
And by the way, before you answer, anyone, we're so happy you're here on the show today. Please include your comments and questions in the chat, which Jen will moderate, that Tiffany will be happy to answer for you. So Tiff, what have you had to bump into?
Like I said, there's been little things that I've always dismissed because it's been the norm. I think it's a social systemic issue. Asians are good at math, the assumption that I'm good at math, or that, I'm subservient or not outspoken. There's been, in my career, people would be surprised, like their reaction when I am outspoken or when I do push against things, their reaction says it all, and it's not a negative thing. They're not saying, well, you're a woman and you're Asian and you shouldn't talk like that. But just the surprise that I am an outspoken Asian woman, that feeds into all of the stigmas. Arvin, my husband, he works at a hospital, and since COVID, he's had some people on his team, patients, request different nurses because they were Asian. And it's just a illogical idea that all Asian people have COVID. And, there's a lot of factors that play into that. The leader of, of the US calling it Kung flu, and the China virus, it definitely influences a lot of people's mentality on and feeding into all of these stigmas. And the CDC had a mythbuster saying that, not all Asian people are, one, Chinese, and two, don't carry the virus just because we're Asian. I thought it was just the most ridiculous thing, but to me, it's illogical. But for some people, it's real. That's their reality. That's what they think. And I mean, I have no words to describe, how illogical it is.
Right.
Yeah.
When you go out into the world in Houston and you're in a big city,
I am.
do you fear for your physical safety?
I didn't, not until the shooting happened, actually. I mean, after the shooting, it really kind of made me more aware, which is a reason why I was kind of a little bit upset with myself, that why didn't I know this was going on before people died? And so, I mean, I started Googling, how do you defend yourself in these situations? I started thinking about what kind of conversations I'm going to have with Anderson when he gets a little bit older, and it's not just, being attacked on the street or, rude things being said to you, but also bullying in general. And I just don't know how to, I'm still trying to process everything. It's still very raw for me. And especially as a mother, I mean, I think if it's just myself, I might not be as outspoken about it, but now I'm being a mama bear, and I'm definitely going to stand up and make this world a better place for my son and my nephew and your granddaughter, and for everybody, because I think this should not be happening at all.
I completely agree with you. I was talking with friends. I think everybody knows I'm from New Jersey, and I was talking to some people in New York, and it's a thing in New York City that Asian men and women are arming themselves with things like mace. This one woman I was talking to, she's got a 13-year-old daughter, and she and her daughter have taken some instruction on how to use mace if they needed to. I mean, I've always been of a mind for a long, long time, and now that I have a granddaughter, especially so, to take a self-defense class.
Right.
I think, who's to say it's not going to be my turn next week? Well, there was a situation a few weeks ago where a football player helped a 71-year-old woman in the park, and it wasn't racial. It didn't seem, it was a mugging. I don't know, but I mean, is it going to be mature white people getting slugged or mugged on the street?
Right.
This week, we're talking about Asian people arming themselves with mace. And I'd be interested in the chat if you all feel safe in walking in the street. And do we think that, simple self-defense classes, I took one self-defense class and I'm really happy I did, to, for women, especially, to feel more secure in your own body.
Absolutely.
And in your case, Tiff, to be able to walk with your son and feel like you could defend both of you.
Absolutely. Yes. I definitely think that looking for those resources now, how do you defend yourself as a woman specifically too, because you are targeted more because we're seen as more vulnerable, weaker, things like that. So I think in general, yes, I definitely think people need to look for those resources on how to defend yourself. And also as a bystander witnessing something. What do you do in that type of situation?
Exactly. Yeah. I think this is all legitimate. And, I'm not advocating, I'm not a gun user, but, it's about how do you hold your keys in your hands and how do you kick properly to disarm somebody, the whole thing about, hitting somebody in the nose straight on, that can disarm them, or, getting them in the eye. And we're not talking about killing anybody. I'm just talking about like getting away and getting safe and keeping your kids safe.
Yeah, definitely.
So when we hear the word ally, we want to be allies. What we know in this workplace is diversity is good. We've got a very diverse group on our show today, and we know that diversity on teams makes for more productive and innovative and creative teams. So we want to be able to support our Asian colleagues and our Black colleagues and our Jewish colleagues. And, diversity is a good thing.
Right.
How, in this case, Tiffany, can we become better allies for the Asian community?
That's a really hard question. I think saying I see you, I hear you, I feel you, it's a start. I think being curious, joining discussions like this, understanding xenophobia, the fear of the unknown, from your perception, it's unknown to you. And I think that stems a lot of hatred. So it's Stop Asian Hate today, but it should just be Stop Hate. We need to express empathy for our fellow human beings. We need to have human kindness, and it's not about not seeing color. It's about seeing the differences and at the very least respecting it, if not appreciating it. I mean, America was built on different cultures, and all these different cultures, ethnicities bring so much value and to our communities that we need to appreciate those things.
I couldn't agree with you more. And in the chat, Jen is putting in some resources that Tiffany has provided. Do you want to talk about what some of those are, Tiffany?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for pointing those out. One is I think it's a Chicago organization. It's called Advancing Justice, and they have a 1-hour bystander intervention to stop anti-Asian American hate training. It's free. It's 1 hour, and it's been totally booked up until May. So I'm signed up for May 4th, and I think they allow 500 people in. So that's actually a good sign that when I saw that everything was booked up until May, because people are interested. People are where they want to do something. I think, and then the other one is the AAPIHate.org. It's a great organization. It has a ton of resources on there. I think understanding the history of Asian Americans, the culture, all of that, I think it will help.
I agree. And I went on the website. I just wanted to kind of check out what kind of resources there were available. Yeah. And I went ahead and I donated some money. There's a easy button there, for donating one time or every month. And I would urge everyone on the call to consider that, to go to the website and just check it out to see the different resources that are available, and to consider a donation of whatever size, because we know that these efforts to raise awareness cost money, and for publicity and to keep shining a light on these resources. I mean, you talking about, self-defense made me think, Tiffany, that maybe at our companies, that is an initiative that could happen, where we figure out ways to bring in somebody who could just teach some simple self-defense.
Absolutely. I agree.
Simple.
I agree. I mean, since 9/11, we have to do a yearly training on shooters in the building. So, I absolutely think that should be something that companies should do for.
Yeah, and I think, it's shows like this, I think that we can put the seed out there and see how it lands. One of our viewers, I think Selena, was saying that she uses her compact mirror to look behind her.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I use her makeup compact.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And, to really be mindful about when you're talking on the phone, because it can distract you. And
yes, mindful. Yes, so definite, and look out for, if a predator is approaching you, what do you look for in that type of situation? How can you avoid it? I think those things would definitely help.
Right. So Denise Morad is asking about the links. Denise, I see them in the chat. If you just scroll a little bit, Jen has been populating them in the chat, the websites that Tiffany is talking about. Tiffany, one of the wonderful facts about you is that you have overcome breast cancer. I was part of your life when you were in that fight, and you were a force. The cancer didn't stand a chance against you. And since that time, you met your husband, and now you have the adorable Anderson. We're going to try to set up Anderson and Madison. You're fearless when it comes to learning. I've always been very impressed with you, and you're rather fearless about going outside your comfort zone. Certainly cancer did that for you.
Absolutely.
As part of that. Well, you gave improv comedy a shot. Can you tell our audience about what happened? How did that happen, and how was that for you? Was anyone tempted for that?
So how it happened. So I was after I went through my whole cancer, chemo and radiation and surgery, I wanted to share my story and get into public speaking. Maybe I'm not sure exactly what I wanted to do, but Vicky, I was talking to you and Vicky, and she recommended to do an improv comedy class. And before cancer, I don't think that I would have signed up for one, but after cancer, if I'm fearful to do something, my answer to myself is, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, I looked death in the eye, and and so nothing's more scarier than that. So I signed up for class, and I took it, and I was terrible at it. I mean, I was terrible, but I loved it because improv comedy, it's so supportive. There's this, I don't know if it's an exercise or something, but it's called yes and. So if somebody says a statement, you have to support it no matter what. You say yes and then you build on it. And I wanted to bring that into the team buildings in the corporate world, because I think that's just so important for teams to come together and support each other no matter what. You may not agree with what they say or how they're doing things, but you need to support them. So improv was just, and I made a really, really awesome friend through there, and we've been connecting very consistently in the past. I think it's been 4 years now since I've taken it. And so it was just an awesome experience. I really recommend everyone to do it, even if you don't think that you're funny, or, you'd be terrible at it. Just do it. growth only happens outside of your comfort zone. I'm a very big believer in that. So you need to consciously, get yourself out of it. I mean, think outside the box. Put your like when you physically feel uncomfortable, you're in a great spot. Then the more you do it, that physical feeling goes away, and that's when that you're growing. That's the physical sign of growth.
Interesting. So let me just say at this point, if anyone out there you've got a lot of love in this chat here, wanting to connect with Tiffany and ask her more about any of this, you are inviting people to connect with you on LinkedIn, right?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And that's the only social media I have is LinkedIn. But definitely, I'll look out for messages and connections, and I'm happy to talk one-on-one.
So Jen, could you put up Deborah Perry's comment about bullying and the one before that, the kind of longer one? There you go.
Okay.
She worked part-time. Okay. So I don't know where one Marlborough, Worcester, Mass. So it's Massachusetts. Any response to that? I mean, 24 years old and constantly bullied and harassed.
Yeah, I believe that.
Right there is tragic.
It is. And that's when I talk about having that conversation with Anderson, he is going to be bullied for probably being shorter than the average person, and what kind of conversation we're going to have with him. And she brings up rallies. I think that's also a great way to show support for things like this. I think going to rallies, like the energy you feel going to rallies, is very moving, and you'll be surrounded by so much passion and stories and so many different people. I think that's also a great way if it's safe to, in the COVID environment. But I think that's another great way to show support and be an ally.
So, Tiffany, in companies, when and if there is a negative comment that someone hears being said about an Asian member of the team, what do you recommend we say to the person saying the negative thing?
That's a good question. One, I would personally have an aside with them. I wouldn't never call anyone out, in a public forum or anything like that. But also understand the intention. So if I'm telling you to go and understand the history of Asians and why we're conditioned to be meek and subservient, then I also need to understand where someone non-Asian is coming from as well. So that's what I would do. I would set them aside. I would say, hey, it wasn't really cool what you said, and maybe it wasn't their intention to, offend anybody. And like I said, I think socially, we've accepted this norm of these stigmas being said and it being okay. And that goes both ways for Asians and non-Asians. I hear Asian people saying all the time, oh, I can do it. I'm good at math, things like that. So I think it goes, we all have a part to play, and to not make it okay to be normal anymore.
Right. The mistake would be to normalize the negativity.
Right.
And so for everyone here, I think Tiffany's right that we all have a part to play. So in our companies, if we see something, if we hear something that we know is not right, I hope that we can find ways to speak with managers and speak with HR. And there's certainly a lot of attention being paid to diversity and equity and inclusion these days, and for good reason. And I'm loving that. Yeah. I believe that the assistants of the world have a very specific seat where you see everything. And we have an opportunity to speak up about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Tiffany, about what is it that you'd like to leave this audience with today?
I think keep continuing the conversation with your families, with your friends, and and also exhibiting this behavior that you want to see in the world. That's what I'm doing. I'm very honest, or I'm trying to be more conscious about what I'm saying around coworkers, around friends, around my son, because I want the world to be a better place. And if I want the world to be a better place, I need to be a better person. And
Yeah.
I have unconscious bias, and I need to, recognize them and address those as well. So I think I start with yourself. Start with yourself, and it'll be like a ray, sun rays, and it'll just,
Yeah. Well,
touch
and
everybody.
Winnie King is writing from London and saying, how do we keep the conversation going? Because she feels that some actions are knee-jerk reactions to, what happened in Atlanta. Like, oh, we have to rush, kind of like shiny object, right?
Yes, yes.
What's your reaction to that, to Winnie's comment?
I think that in your daily interactions, if you see something, say something. If you, that's how you keep the conversation going. You don't necessarily have to bring it up as, we're bringing up the conversation now because of the shootings. But little things like this happen all the time. Microaggressions, against Asian Americans, against any minorities, against anybody, period. That's how you keep the conversation going. It doesn't have to be because of of an event. And I think that us being conscious and aware about, this is a start.
Yeah, and Sandy Knott from Boston also backs that up. If you see something, say something. It's critical.
Yeah.
There's, now that it's escalated into violence in places, it's never been acceptable, but it is intolerable. It is.
Right.
It must have a pushback, because who among us can say it's not going to be us tomorrow?
Absolutely.
It can be any one of us.
Yes.
Who are impacted by COVID, impacted by violence on the street, a crazy person who just decides to, there was a term for it, cold cocking, or, like just knocking somebody down in New York City a while back.
Yeah.
Clearly we know we're in a time when stress and anxiety is very high.
Yeah.
But as you say, I think you're right that every one of us can play a part in making it better, not only for ourselves, but for our kids.
Absolutely.
So I'm so grateful for you to be here, Tiffany.
Thank you, Bonnie.
And thank everyone for joining us today. And please connect with Tiffany and let us commit to keeping the conversation going and calmly. And just to say, Tiffany, you would welcome if colleagues came to you and said, help me understand this part of your culture.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be afraid of that. Some people, especially during after George Floyd, would say, well, I can't talk to my Black colleagues because I don't know what to say. But we have to just say, I care. Right. And you matter.
Yes.
And
even if you're not saying the right words, the intention is there. And hopefully, I don't think that anyone would say, well, you're not saying the right words, politically correct or not. And I'm not going to tell you about my culture. And I don't, if someone is like that, maybe you don't want to learn from them,
Yeah, right. And so meet up with Tiffany in Houston and just get her a tiramisu and you're all set. Right?
Yes.
All right. So next week, we are going to have an episode specifically about Be the Ultimate Assistant and about the trainings that we're doing and, how Ultimate Assistant training is responding to what's going on in the workplace today. Tiffany, you've been with us once or twice? Twice. Yeah. You want to just say a word or two about your experience?
I loved BTUA. I still actually talk to some people from Salt Lake City and from San Diego, I think was the last one that I went to. And I'm going to the one in Houston in September, so I'm so excited. And, I've been to two, and the materials change and adapt to the environment and adapt to what's going on, current events. events. So I'm a big believer in attending at least once every 2 years. Hopefully get to go to the one in Hawaii, but but
I
no,
hope
I
you get back
definitely. Yeah, I recommend it to every assistant that I ever talk to that they need to attend. They need to read your book. You get so much out of it, more than just Microsoft skills. I mean, it's a community, and I love it.
Yeah, and a lot of them are on the call right now. Karen Montgomery is here. Look
Oh,
at that.
hey, Karen.
We got a lot of fans here.
Yeah.
So let's see it. We'll see you all next week, Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Jen, thanks for your help from behind the scenes. Tiffany Nguyen, thank you for your generosity of spirit, which is
Of
always
course.
the case with you. And be in touch with Tiffany. She's a wealth of information. Together is better. We need one another. Let us solve this, and we can stop hate and get it done. Okay.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Bye,
Thank you,
Tiffany.
everyone.